Good evening. Steve Walls here alongside Darren Smith on the sideline here after the Kansas City Chiefs have defeated the Arizona Cardinals in their second preseason game. Darren, man, how you doing?
Doing well. Chiefs got they're above. Well, they're 500. They were winless last week. So, look, week 2 of the preseason, finally got a chance to see what the offense is supposed to look like. It took them 3 drives, but once they started clicking, obviously you go from the first team, second, even to the third and the fourth team. I mean, they look good. I mean, this is the offense. Now, granted, Arizona is not expected to do much this season. They're probably going to have the worst record.
You think?
And
I think they may surprise some people.
I don't know, because the reason why I say that is because I think they're going to try to go after Caleb. But I don't think Kyler is going to be the answer for him. But be that as it may, I do like the Chiefs and how they performed today. They played much better. At least the starting unit and the defense as well played much better than what they did in week number 1 against the Saints last week.
And you mentioned playing better. I got a chance to talk to Patrick post-game, and what he talked about was what Andy Reid told him. It's like, hey, we've got to start out faster, just point blank, period. We can't come out and play lackadaisious like we've been doing. We played bad the first game. Yeah. He said all the starters played bad, and I just looked. I said, whoa. That coming from Andy, I mean, it's the hard truth is what he's able to tell this team, and I just want to know what you think about that.
Well, it's factual. Yeah. I mean, because and even to an extent now, I was in the locker room while you were in there with Pat. Did he talk about them taking 3 drives to get on the board? Yeah.
That's crazy that you said that, because he did. He said he told the starters, he said, hey, if you guys want to come out of the game, we've got to score. Yeah. If we don't, Andy's going to make us go back out there. So, of course, they eventually went down and scored.
But that's good, because you want to feel like we know it's preseason. But yeah. you do want to get a feel of a sense of urgency, because when the season starts, you don't know how the other team is going to, what their offense is going to be capable of doing and what your defense is going to be up against. And so I do like the fact that Andy told them, hey, you want to come out. Let's get out there and let's show like we're supposed to. And so I do like that, because if they do it here, I tell people all the time, perfect practice makes practice perfect. And so if you practice the way that you've been doing, it should translate that to the field. We always talk about, players doing what they do in practice and showing us on the field. So for me, if they get out to that fast start, that's going to help them, especially, early on in the season. Yeah, you play Detroit to start the season off, but really when you get to the thick of that schedule, when you start playing, the Buffaloes and the Cincinnatis and the Philadelphias and stuff, those teams like that, you've got to make sure that you come out hot right away, because you don't know what they're going to do. And if you fall behind, again, you don't put that kind of pressure where you got to always keep coming and playing from behind.
And I think you have to start every game in this preseason is what's going to lead you up to Detroit. I mean, that's what they're planning for. Of course, Andy's not the offense, folks, so that is very vanilla. He's not, drawing up anything that you'll probably see in the regular season. But I do want to ask you this. We talked about, in our pregame cheat sheet show before the game, what we thought that the team needed to change last week.
Yeah.
And it was starting faster, and it was also short yardage. Did you see any changes coming into that?
Well, obviously they didn't start fast enough, because it took them 3 downs. But once they started, they didn't stop, which is a good thing. And that says a lot, because we were kind of joking about the backup quarterback battle between Buechele and Galbert. But then, Adam Tyson.
I asked Andy about that too.
I get you just a second, because I was joking with you up in the press box about, man, it might be a competition between Patrick and Buechele. The way he was out there throwing the ball. He threw a touchdown pass and they ran in for one. So really, the offense in general looked good again. You get past, starting off fast, everything else was like clockwork. Defensively, go to your point about short yardage. I thought they did much better. I mean, look, the Chiefs put themselves, even in third and long position, they were still able to convert. So I thought they did well on that. The one thing I didn't like was some of the unnecessary silly penalties that they were getting. And that even starts with the starting line. The starting offensive line was some of the false starts that they were doing. And so I think that's something that can be worked on. I mean, that's what you do. You get the kinks out now in preseason, so it don't affect you in the regular season. But I think outside of that, I did like what I saw offensively.
Yeah, and you mentioned the quarterback, not controversy, but the battle between Shane and Blank.
That's a good battle. That's a good battle to have, too.
Yeah, it is. And I asked Andy, it's like, you talked about putting in the second. Of course, you got your first unit. Well, last week Shane was with the threes.
Yeah.
This week he was playing with the twos, and he said. And what Andy said was today was supposed to be an off day for Blaine. Like Blaine was not supposed to play. However, when he threw Shane in there, he did really well, and then just kind of domino from there.
And also to that, but Shane also played with the starters as well, because the only starters that came out,
of course, he played with Scott.
Was Patrick, MVS, and Travis. Those were the only, because when after they scored, when Michelle came in, everybody else, even I think Clyde was still in the game. So I think, again, outside those three starters, everybody else continued to play it until they scored in, and then he pulled all the ones out, and then Blaine stayed with the rest. So again, he makes a good point. So what did he? Now I know he said it's kind of an off day, but what did he say about Galbert's performance? Even though he did come in there, and I guess he played the rest of the game.
Both he and Patrick said that Blaine played really well. I mean. And of course, we joked about it, like Blaine on the side looking like, oh, okay. So he came in, he drove right down the field.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. So I mean, that's a healthy competition between those two. And speaking of healthy competition, I want to ask you about the wide receiving room. I talked to Cornell Powell and also Amir Merced post game about that healthy competition in that wide receiver room. What do you see from them?
Well, we talked, especially, it's funny because we talked about that. We didn't talk about, I talked about Cornell Powell, Amir, but we didn't talk about him pregame. But with Cornell, we talked about whether or not he's going to make this team, because he's been on the practice squad last 2-3 seasons, and it's like, it's time. I mean, your time, put up or shut up. And now, I don't know whether or not he makes it, because they're so deep at that position right now, and they didn't. I don't think they hurt themselves, but one of the things when I talked to Justin Reed in the locker room is what happens is, as long as your ones are in the game, it's less time for the twos and the threes to showcase what they can do. If not for this team, for other teams. Because I asked Justin about the even though the backups are doing well, because they're not getting as much reps as they did in the first game, how's it going to look, especially going into next week? Now, I don't know if Andy talked about next week's, and he probably won't until Thursday or whatever, as it relates to what we can expect to see from the starters, if anything. A lot of people are do not want Patrick to play in the game,
right? And
I get that, but I also see a scenario where, because Andy is who he is now. Granted, last year when they did it, Lynn Dawson had passed away, and Patrick came out there just basically for the ceremonial thing to do the Lynn Dawson tribute, and didn't come out. But they also had a home game already, so I'm thinking that they play at least a series, because as I said to somebody on social media, that as much as the ticket prices are, there's going to be a lot of people who go to the preseason game next week that won't be able to afford to go to the regular season games, and that might be the only chance that they get to see Patrick play. So I hope that that they keep him out there at least for a series or quarter or whatever, so at least those fans can get a chance to see him, because I do know that the Cleveland Browns are going to play their stars. I know Deshaun Watson wants to get some rest from what he said the other night, so I expect them to play at least a quarter, if not a half or whatever. Now again, Chiefs and Andy will do what they want to do, but I like to at least see him get some working, because you're going to essentially have 2 weeks off before your home opener.
And Patrick talked about that post game too. He talked about he was asked the question about getting his first hit. He's been saying he needs to get that first hit. He said he talked to the offensive line. He's like, hey guys, I just need to get that first hit. However, I haven't been touched in the past 2 weeks. I mean, so, and he said, not saying that that's a bad thing, but he's like, I just want to get that first hit. But Andy was asked about it too, and he said, no, he doesn't need to get hit. He's all right. He doesn't need to get hit. So I just think that he may play. I'm really not sure. You still have an extra week, right? I think
it's considered a bye week. Yeah, so after next Saturday's game, they do all the cuts and stuff, but you got that entire week. In the following week,
is that Thursday night game?
And then that's when we go to the short week, as it is, because they're the Super Bowl champions. They all the pomp and circumstances. Right. So
right, yeah. So what did you see from the defense? We talked a lot about offense, but what did you see from the defense?
Well, it's interesting because the defense did leave some things to be desired, because they did get some big plays, being attacked, and they did get some big plays played on them, but they kept them at the end zone, obviously, except for the one score that they had. The fact that they were able, I mean, it was a few times down on the goal line that they kept them out of the end zone. I think it was the one time right before the half that they scored, which was kind of disappointing, but you saw just how good that they were able to perform. And early on there were some missed tackles, some open field tackles that really bothered me. But I think they cleaned it up for the most part. And like I said, talking to Justin, they it was to be expected, but in his opinion, they played obviously much better, especially when the start defense played much better, than what they did last week. So,
and I can agree. I can agree with that. So, what are you expecting them to do? I mean, we talked about Patrick possibly playing. Do we know if all the starters will be sitting, or what are we expecting them to do next week as they go into Arrowhead? Because Chiefs fans want to know.
Well, look, if it was me, I'd have the starters at least play the first quarter. But that's just me because I'm thinking about the fans. Yes, I do think about the fans, and I'm thinking about your pocketbooks for those. What I'm saying, for people who can't afford it. Hey, look, man, we're fortunate. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We don't have to pay for parking. We don't pay for the game. Yeah. There's people out there that now a lot of people like to watch the game on TV. I'm not mad at them about that, but those that want to come out to the game, but I get it. That's the thing about this whole preseason thing. Now that they lowered the number of games from 4 to 3, it's a matter of, do you play your starters? And if they get hurt, then you start the season off. But then in week number 1, if the offense isn't looking good and they get hurt or whatever, the first thing they'll say, well, how come they didn't play much in preseason? So it's a give and take that it's really hard to debate. Yeah. Now, it's worked well for Kansas City. Yep. You know what I'm saying, for the starters to play, going into the last game in preseason. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I will plan, but again, I'm not the head coach.
Yeah. All right, folks, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We know it's 11 o'clock at home in Kansas City. It is. It's 9 o'clock here, 11 o'clock in Kansas City. Thanks for staying up with us post-game. We really appreciate it. For Steve Walls and Darren Smith, remember, you can catch us. What was that?
Saturday. Pre-game cheat sheet.
Pre-game cheat sheet. Yeah. And these Saturday games are really throwing me off, though. Like, when it comes to then it's going to be a Thursday game. Then once it goes back,
don't forget last year, the first 5 weeks of the season, the Chiefs played a Thursday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah. I mean, they play different times. Yeah. So I mean, the same thing will happen this year, man. And look, when you're the Super Bowl champion, this is what you want. I mean, you everybody's Super Bowl, so we're gonna get everybody's best. Team's gonna get everybody's best, and Steve and I will be,
especially the Lions.
So Steve and
that's gonna be mark down that I said that, because I think the Lions are gonna come in to Arrowhead and try to create it.
The over-under is 54.5.
Yeah. All right, we'll see.
Okay,
we'll see.
We'll see whether or not Steve can win us some money this season.
All right, for Steve Walls and Darren Smith, remember to follow myself at Steve Walls KC. Follow Darren Smith at Darren Smith WHB on all social media platforms. Until next week, we are out of here.